All right, I'm calling the meeting to order at 7 p.m. And we haven't really talked about minutes, Michael, but would you mind just taking rough notes?
Oh, yes.
I don't think we need anything formal.
No, of course. I'm expecting that I'll take some simple minutes tonight.
Okay, sounds great. So I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Nancy Vandell, chair of this fabulous committee, Bylaws Committee, and we are just very, very excited to see you all tonight. And I'd like the committee members to introduce themselves, and then let's have everybody introduce. So who would like to start?
I'll start. I'm Michael Beachley. I am the scribe for the subcommittee on bylaws.
Thank you.
I'm Tom Sipe. I'm the editor of the document when we finally get it done.
And along the way, fabulous.
I'm Bill Miller, and I don't have a special role.
Well, everybody's
not true.
special. You've
Not
been
true.
doing a great job.
I'm
Welcome.
Susan Schomburg, and I'm a regular member.
I'm
Sounds great.
Wyatt Angelo.
And all of you guys have just been great. And Sarah Absher is here and is a sort of a ex officio member of our committee. She's providing terrific support throughout. So welcome, Sarah. Sarah is the Tillamook County. I should have this on the thing. Can you introduce yourself, Sarah?
Thank you, Nancy. Yes. Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Sarah Absher. I'm the director of the Tillamook County Department of Community Development and the county liaison to the CACs.
Great, thank you. All right, and I see Jeff, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Jeff Weitzel, and I'm the secretary of the NCAC, and I tech support to Nancy on a regular basis.
Yes,
Very, very
extremely helpful to us, to the committee. Thank you. And how about everybody else? Can you please introduce yourselves?
I'm Lori Kovac, and I'm a resident in Neskowin, and I'm on the Community Plan Steering Committee. And I'm fascinated to see how successful these meetings are.
I am too. This will be a test.
It'll be great for our community to learn from what you do.
Great. Thank you. Welcome, Lori. And Tom.
Yeah, I'm Tom Perhodich. I'm omnipresent, including at the meeting last night, the executive session, that I was the only extra person to attend, but it was very, very good, I thought, and I applauded them for what they did. I'm a resident, and as I introduce myself in this context, the second and less important Tom.
But I am learning to pronounce your name. So you prefer Perhodich over Perhodich.
It's complicated.
Okay.
Perhodich, Prehodich, Perhodich, Prohodich.
Okay. You'll answer to any of those as long as there's a
any of those.
Okay, great. And I see Roger and Gary. Can you introduce yourselves?
Gary Billingsley. I'm a resident of Neskowin.
Welcome, Gary.
And I'm Roger Woodland. I'm a resident of Neskowin on the Ridge.
And welcome back, Roger. And Anne, have you introduced yourself?
I'm Ann Sipe, and I'm Tom Sipe's sidekick, resident
Great.
of Neskowin.
Welcome. So I'm going to share the screen and go to the agenda. I hope. Can you guys all see this?
Yeah.
So the meeting documents are on the site if where you registered, if you'd like to take a look at those. But tonight is more informal tonight to talk about 4 different articles that are relatively short. So we've already gone through introductions. We're reviewing the agenda. We're going to talk briefly about the process and what the Bylaws Committee subcommittee is trying to do, one of which is renaming ourselves to subcommittee. And then we'll talk a little bit about, we'll get into the discussion itself. So some of the rules that we would like to try out tonight, because this is the first session, is that we're going to ask that you limit your comments to 2 minutes per commenter per article. We may not necessarily hold to that, but Susan's going to be a timekeeper. And the commenter could speak again if responding to somebody else's comment. But we're thinking tonight will be fairly simple, but some of the ones coming up in the future, we may have to be a little more diligent about keeping people to this. And we're going to ask that you speak to the issue or raise a question. We don't anticipate any personal kinds of attacks or anything, but please keep things on a positive suggestion. We're here, the committee is here to listen to you and answer your questions. And then we'll be taking your feedback into our meetings and discussing whether we need to make any changes to what we're proposing. So, and then we're going to talk about Article 1, which is the name of the organization, Article 2, the objective of the organization, Article 8, the parliamentary authority, and Article 9, amending the bylaws. And then we'll talk about an overall schedule. Does that sound okay? Now I'm going to get into the actual feedback. And there, now I can actually get into my menu. Okay, can everybody see the slides okay? Okay. And when we're screen sharing, we can't really see who's got their hand up. If you want to speak or whatever, go into the chat and let people know that you have something to say. We've just introduced our committee. It has absolutely been a terrific working experience, and we're working very hard to review and update the bylaws. So we had some questions from people about why are you even doing this? And we're doing it because right now there are some areas that are not particularly clear. There are conflict areas. The format wasn't a standard format. So we're reviewing them for clarity, functionality, and for fairness. And we're working, those are our goals. We're also being very transparent. We've all learned quite a bit about Oregon public meeting law and what we need to do to be open and transparent. And so that means everything that we do is out on the website. And there are links to be able to get to different documents so that you can see as we've gone through each iteration is out there. We have opportunities for member input in many different ways. You can attend our bylaws committee meetings that are posted, and Jeff has been doing a great job of publicizing all of those. And there's public comment at the end of those. We also have, you can email us, you can call us. We welcome your input. We also have special bylaws feedback meetings, which you are attending tonight. So at this point, early on, we've gone through developing a process for looking at the bylaws. We spent some time on that. We were elected in August and got right to work. We've numbered the existing bylaws, which were not numbered, and then mainly due to Tom Sipe, we have mapped everything over to Robert's Rules of Order format, which is the standard bylaws format. Tom has gone through and along with the committee reviewing and done editorial changes and come up with a document naming standard, again, Tom, and a document management repository that Jeff and Tom helped set up. And then come up with a project plan to go into the meat of what we're doing, which is the substantive review. So all that was written off, approved by the NCAC in our October meeting to go forward. So you can find all these links in the document itself that you can get where you signed up for the meeting, but you can find all of our documents in these locations. So at this point, as we got into the substantive work, we've assigned each bylaws article, there are 10 articles in the bylaws, and we've assigned each article review to 1 or 2 subcommittee members. And discuss the proposed wording with the full subcommittee in meetings. And through that process, we've done some updates, gathered input, and revised as appropriate. And then we take votes on the initial recommendations. in the subcommittee. And so all of the articles tonight have been approved by the subcommittee to go forward for your input. Doesn't mean they're cast in stone. We want to hear what you think. And so that's what the feedback sessions are for. We have 9 feedback sessions. I think 8 have been publicized to go over the different bylaws. And we'll go through the schedule at the end. Along the way, we're reviewing with Tillamook County. Tillamook County is, through Sarah, is our manager of the NCAs, of the CACs throughout the county, the citizen advisory committees throughout the county, and the county council and the supervisors have to approve any changes to the bylaws. And then there'll be a vote of the bylaws at a general meeting. It looks like it'll be a special meeting that will be set up sometime in May. And that's another opportunity for member feedback. It'll be a little more formal process with parliamentary procedures involved there, and not as casual as tonight. And Michael will be giving parliamentary procedures training prior to that. So lots of ways for you to provide input. We have a email, ncacbylaws@gmail.com that will get to us. Or you can email the info at NCAC email address, and Jeff gets it to us. And comment in the meetings, etc., or attend these meetings. So we welcome your input. So today we're going to present each article. The people that worked on that article will do the presentation, and then we'll discuss each article. And then we're going to try out taking an informal poll for each article, just with a couple of questions, and see how that works and see if you like it. So this is a test evening too. We'll see if there need to be any changes to the format going forward. So we're first going to talk about Article 1, which was set up by Bill and me, and you'll see we spent a lot of time on Article 1. Bill's going to present that. Article 2, Object, that was worked on by Tom and Bill, and then Michael has handled Parliamentary Authority, Article 8, and Amending the Bylaws, Article 9. Okay, any questions so far? Okay, so on to Article 1, name. Bill, take it away.
All right, Nancy and I spent considerable time on this article. Originally, it said the name of the organization should be the Neskowin Citizen Advisory Committee. And we decided that was a good name. So we proposed to make no change.
Very good, Bill. Are there any questions about Article 1? So Tom has said a number of times, and I think we all agree with the philosophy, if something doesn't need to be changed, if there's no real good reason, don't change it. And we like the name, so.
Can we add not to be confused with the Neskowin Community Association?
Can we add that? Are you? No, well,
But
yeah,
like as part of the official name.
I don't think,
Joking.
Are you suggesting this, Jeff, or are you joking?
I'm joking, but
Okay.
you would be surprised how many emails I get that are
Yes.
from the NCA. So
Yeah.
So we could say NTBC.
Yeah.
Not to be confused.
Yeah.
Perhaps we should ask them to change their name.
Yes.
Never mind.
Yeah.
But,
So maybe somewhere in the policies and procedures, we could say, by the way, this is a different organization. So, all right. So any discussion on this article besides Jeff's? Okay. So I'm going to try a poll. And I think because I'm running this thing, I have to escape to get to the poll. Okay, Jeff. Let's see. I'm glad you're on.
I have never tried to do a poll while presenting, but I do know that while presenting, the toolbar sometimes goes and hides someplace strange.
Yeah, it is. I'm going to stop the share. So this may be a problem. We may need to have someone else do the poll in the future.
If you want to make me co-host, I can do it later.
Okay. What did I make you? Yeah, because when I first got on, Jeff, I can see where I would do the poll. And now I'm not, and Okay, let me make you a host.
Should be like right next to record, I think.
Yeah, nothing is, I have share screen. Huh.
If share screen, summary, AI companion, it should be down among those things.
Yeah, it should be. It was before. Well, okay, I'm going to have to practice polling in the future. Darn. Well, let me see.
Oh,
about
you said
more.
something about
Oh,
maybe.
right there, polls
person
and
list?
quizzes.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
I've got it
All
here.
right.
Launch. Whoops, except it's the wrong poll. It's not in order. Okay, let me go back.
Oh,
I
we're
think you have
making
to dismiss
progress.
that.
What's that?
I think you have to close that poll.
Okay.
Upper right.
I see.
Little X in the upper right of the poll.
All right, well, we're learning on this. Sorry, I'm not seeing an X anywhere. Where are you seeing a poll?
Right at the very top.
Oh, right
of the
there, end poll. Okay,
There you go.
thank you. Sorry, people.
No problem.
Okay, launch number 1. Okay.
It's good practice.
Okay, well, thank you for being patient. So
That's why
basically,
we
do you
started-
support the
that's why we
recommendation
started
for
out with the
Article 1?
name.
We spent so much time on the name of the organization that
We're gonna spend more time in the poll,
Right, that's right.
which is good. It balances out.
we have the time. It's good practice.
So I see 6 people have responded.
Oh, how do you respond?
Hit submit.
Is it not saying where to respond?
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I got it.
You got it? Okay, I see
I
8 out of 12.
think.
9. Okay, and
Yeah,
then it'll
this takes
record
a
it, right, Jeff?
little
So like,
practice to be the responder also.
yeah. Okay, 9 out of 9. So 10 out of 10 are yes. No no's, no unsures. Okay, 83%. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll unless somebody else wants to. Is anybody writing an answer? We have 3 answers. And I assume it will. Okay, I'm going to end. Okay, so everybody share results. So view details. So it looks like, okay, some people answered the long question too, and Jeff, you got yours in there, so, okay. Thank you. Okay, stop sharing.
So Nancy,
Yes,
someone apparently had a long answer. Are you gonna save
Oh.
those for the committee to look at it another time?
yes, yes.
Okay.
And did you guys see the long answers? I mean,
No.
I only
Okay.
saw my and
You only saw the
I'll take a
poll.
look myself, but like the fancy stuff that we did at the last general meeting, those results didn't come in correctly. So I'm curious to see if the long answers
oh,
are properly preserved.
okay. Okay, good to
Um,
know. So basically, we had 2 people say, no, they didn't have any questions or comments, and one person, and Jeff said, can we add not the Neskowin Community Association to the official name? Thank you, Jeff. All right. Okay.
But just when we get into more
Substantive,
things
we
that
want to
might
be able
have
to
more-
capture
more
them.
input, we're
Right.
not gonna that won't be shared during the feedback session. We'll look at it
Right.
later.
I think we'll have to wait and see. I mean, it may be that someone has waited. Well, there's going to be plenty of opportunity for people to talk in the meeting. So we'll have to see if we get much in that. And it may be something where we want to take that part out. At the end of the meeting, I want to ask people what you guys think of the poll.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to share the screen again and go to Article 2. object. So this is Bill and Tom.
Well, let's see, first I need to make sure that I'm unmuted. Yes, I am. Okay, we didn't do much here. Once I untangled the sentences originally, and I think they're available at the bottom of this, but were originally quite intertwined. And once I pulled apart the sentences, it was very straightforward. The thing which was not straightforward, it looked like they may have accidentally repeated the term citizens. So it looked like that NCAC was advising citizens, which we're not meant to do. That's not our job. We are to provide our opinions to the government to which we owe our allegiance. So that was the only substantial thing in that changed.
Okay, are there any questions? Okay, let's go to the second part of this.
It's just added an example in there in terms of environmental impacts, since it may not have been real obvious what is meant by that. And just a little wordsmithing in there since it's been last seen by the membership.
Okay, so everything on the
yeah,
left.
Bill's comment was that we shouldn't be suggesting continually. We should actually only do it if we have a reason.
So the wording on the left that's in black is in the current bylaws, and the red is the suggestion.
Yeah.
So the new wording is over here on the right.
Yeah.
And can everybody
Okay.
see everything okay? Okay, is there any discussion? So the part about putting in the EG watershed was just something that came up since the last bylaws committee meeting. So bylaws subcommittee, feel free to comment as well.
I'm okay with that.
Are we gonna discuss this again at a separate bylaws meeting?
Yes.
Okay, well, I'll just hold my stuff then. So, but just so everybody understands the slide here, the new wording on the right is the proposed wording without the red highlights.
Right.
Thank you, Bill.
And there might be X'd out in some places. So if you want to read it without seeing the changes, just look at the right side.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, are there any comments,
So this is-
questions?
This
Lori?
is Lori. Yeah,
Hi, Lori.
I just have I'm just curious why just the environmental impacts have an example. It seems like to me like that's not any less clear than the other subjects. So would each of them have an example or none of them have an example? I just question why. It's not a big deal to me. I'm just questioning why that one particular one has an explanation and the others don't.
That's exactly the question I was going to raise later, Lori. So I wholeheartedly agree with you.
That phrase may or may not survive the next pass.
And throughout all the bylaws, Lori, there would be examples of that. Big bullet points of things we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
But anyway,
So,
yeah, we
so
should
great
be,
comment, Lori. Thank you.
yeah, we should be. I agree. We should be consistent in our commentary. Either do it everywhere or leave it as it is.
Mhm. So we would probably leave it as it is, would be my guess, but we'll talk about it in the next meeting. Okay, excellent. Any other comments? Okay. So, are we going to try a poll? Let me see. I think I'm going to have to stop sharing again.
So I have a question. This is Lori again. So if I believe that I support the idea that it should be consistent one way or the other, would I say no or abstain?
I think what you could do is say unsure. How about that? Or why don't we just say, at this point, we've taken your comment and we're going to discuss that. So I think you could say unsure, or whatever you feel is comfortable. But why don't we say the committee is going to look really carefully at what you said, and I think committee members, correct me if you think I'm speaking out of turn, but I think we will add consistency. We will either take out that comment or we will add something to each of them. And I think what we'll probably do is take out the comment.
If you think it's a generally good idea, you might say conditional, agree, for instance, and say conditional on making it consistent. Something like that
In the
would
comments.
be, yeah.
So I don't remember what the poll was. The poll was no?
Yes.
Or
yes,
was
no,
there a
abstain,
yes,
and then
no,
comment.
maybe, or
I'm actually going to edit it right now.
can you show us the poll so we can
in 1 second? Yes, I'm editing it as we speak. If consistent on part 2. How about that? All right, now I'm going to launch it. Okay, can everybody
I think
see
Lori's
it?
question is going to be applicable.
Sure.
I suppose from Lori's standpoint, you could say yes, assuming you delete the example, or you could say no because there's an example. I mean,
Right.
she's unsure. So
Yeah,
maybe
this
she
is
was-
actually really good because it's teaching us
yeah.
how we're going to have to possibly manage poll questions in more complex situations. So
I
this is-
suppose if I were Lori, I would say no, and then in the comment I would put inclusion of the example does not seem necessary.
Well,
So just to give a comment about the poll itself, I did an answer. I said yes, and then I was going to put in the comment section, assuming that it's consistent with the explanation or not, but it wouldn't let me put my comment. It closed it after I did the yes, and I was not able to put a comment. So just
Really?
just to let you know
there's-
how the poll's working.
Oh, that's interesting.
You
So
That's
as
good
soon as you
information
put
to
yes,
know.
it wouldn't let you answer question 2.
Yeah.
Huh, because it's a separate question.
I'm able to. I just answered yes, and I'm saying assuming the deletion. So I'm able to type that.
Well, I said yes, if consistent on part 2, but as I've thought through it, I think Lori's right. I mean, e.g. obviously means, for example, but
Mhm.
it does suggest some kind of limitation that the other categories don't have.
Mhm.
yeah,
So that's why I modified the question and maybe didn't do it very well on the fly, but to say if it's consistent, by on part 2, I meant on that page, but for examples.
Well, if there's
Lori?
only one example given, isn't it IE instead of EG?
You know,
Well, then that would be
we're going to go
completely-
back and probably take it out. Tom?
Well, no, then that would be completely limiting. That would mean that's it, only watershed.
Right.
we will not use Latinate in this document. IEs and EGs will not exist.
Our editor speaks. Anyway, we're getting some great input here. Can I end the poll, or it looks like we have 9 out of 12?
Just let me ask Lori a question. Lori, when you tried to type in your thing, did you put yes or no?
I answered yes,
And
then I was
Huh,
yeah,
okay.
and I couldn't go down. But I'm on an iPad, and normally I'm on my computer, so it could be a technical thing with me. But I was trying to scroll up to get this question 2, and it wouldn't let me go far enough to answer.
When you say
Okay.
question 2, what do you mean by question 2?
Well, there's question 1 and question 2. Question 1 is, do you support the recommendations for Article 2 if consistent on part 2? And then question 2 is, do you have any further questions or comments about Article 2? And you can fill in, you can type in.
I see, yeah.
And
So
Lori's saying she couldn't get into question 2.
Yeah,
Right.
I checked yes, and I was able to type in an answer on question 2.
Yeah,
That might-
Lori,
might
I
be on
kind of had the
Lori's end.
same. I kind of had the same issue. That window that pops up, the poll window, seems a little tricky. When I try to use the backspace key for the comment section, it automatically closed it, submitted it, I think.
Oh, are you on an iPad also, Gary?
No, I'm on a regular computer.
Huh. So 4 people answered question 2. So it's interesting. It's inconsistent. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll. This looks like 9 out of 12 have answered. And I'm going to share the results. And can everybody see the results? So everybody answered yes. And then Tom Prohodich answered, if consistent on part 2. Tom Sipes said should remove the example. Jeff wrote, I support consistency, and specifically I support no example. Define terms like environmental impacts in definitions. Great.
Yeah.
And Bill, assuming the example is deleted. So I think we have a really strong input that we are deleting the example. So, all right, thanks everybody. I'm going to go now, reshare. And we will go to Article 8. Michael.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Let's see, just a little background. I have been a parliamentarian on and off for 60 years. So, you know, I have a lot of examples of a variety of situations and contexts in which I've participated as a parliamentarian. But I recognize Robert's rules as a fair, certainly time-tested, broadly accepted authority for more than 150 years. The thing about parliamentary procedures is that I'm aware that a lot of people are sort of afraid of it because it's arcane and it's convoluted and there's a lot of stuff going on there, but there are very clearly certain values that are associated with parliamentary procedures. First of all, it provides a protocol for procedures where the assembly gets its job done, but it gets its job done in good order. And that's important, that it doesn't get out of control. There's an expectation of how we proceed in a particular fashion and so on, but it's done so with fairness. And it's done so with equity, and those are important things. But most of all, it's done with respect for and recognition of the rights of the minority. And that's an important thing to, I think, to remember. It assumes no position on any particular motion that may be in front or before the assembly, but it is focused specifically on procedure itself. Many of you have seen business before an assembly that gets out of control and people start arguing and they get angry at each other and it gets out of control and we don't know where we're going and it gets convoluted and we forget what it is and blah, blah, blah. Well, this keeps things in an orderly fashion. So you have a motion and you have a second to the motion and we argue about the motion and we debate the motion and we deliberate on the motion and somebody else comes up with something they want to add. So they move an amendment to that motion and so on and so forth. And until we actually get to the point where we all understand what each other's positions are, and we can clarify those, and we have a positive or a negative, or we have an affirmative or a negative position, and we can raise that forward. And of course, this particular assembly, the NCAC, is specifically charged to provide insight and a sense of understanding of what issues may be forwarded to the Tillamook County Board of Commissioners. And the Board of Commissioners has a mission, and their mission is to hear multiple sides of an issue. And so our charge as an organization, as the Assembly, to present to them as best we can and as broadly as we can, multiple sides to an issue so that they can take it and weigh it from the people who actually experience and live within those issues and make their best choice for what's best for the county. So the rights of the minority are explicit in the understanding of parliamentary rule. Now, all members have an equal voice, and so it's important that under parliamentary procedures, we go back and forth if there's a contentious issue so that the affirmative has a position and an opportunity to speak, the negative has a position and an opportunity to speak, and it goes back to the affirmative and so on. And this procedure itself keeps us from arguing, but to deliberate. And there's a difference between argumentation and deliberation. We present our positions so that the other side can listen. We present our position so that those who agree with me are felt that their understanding and their position is well represented and so on. So the right to speak is paramount, but it is done so within a particular order so that we can get through our business. The purpose is to provide the greatest access to the broadest set of ideas for consideration. And the end result is a formulation of the best ideas. Now, the creation of a parliamentarian, first of all, we have a parliamentary authority, which is 150 years worth.
So Michael, I'm going to stop you for a moment. The creation of the parliamentarian is in a different article. All we're doing is parliamentary authority here.
Sure. But this sort of supports that, because if we have this understanding of parliamentary authority, then the question is going to come up: who understands this? Who has a grasp of what all of this is, and so on. And so as a corollary to all of that, we are, of course, proposing that one of the officers is a parliamentarian. So there's a hierarchy of activity, motions, amendments, et cetera, but there's also this secondary list of activities that becomes even more important, and that is personal privilege, things that happen in the spur of the moment that are not so focused on any particular item that we happen to be debating. So at any rate, it's important for us to identify as a group that this is the rules of order that we will adhere to, so that the chair has the right and the authority to make sure that the process, the procedure that's occurring in any deliberation within the assembly follows a set of authority rules that protects both the affirmative and the negative to have their positions well presented and done so with respect for each other. So this is what we're going to do.
Okay, thank you, Michael. So basically, the current text is on the left, and the proposed wording is just changing it so that Robert's Rules of Order is first, because as Michael said, Robert's Rules of Order newly revised it goes into parliamentary procedures like he talked about. It also talks about how bylaws should be written and how meetings should be conducted and all that kind of thing. And it's the standard. So there's no change there from what was previously in the bylaws, but it's just put into the more front and center area.
Yeah,
and
I should also add, Nancy, that because we adopt Robert's Rules of Order in no way requires that we be rigid about how we organize our meetings or how we conduct our meetings. At best, parliamentary procedure simply provides a structure when we are confused as an assembly or there's conflict as an assembly or whatever, but that we have a very clear, simple set of procedures that we follow as we go through our deliberations.
Great, thank you. So
Michael,
the new wording is here on the right, that unless it conflicts with Oregon meeting law
Correct.
Tillamook County regulations or NCAC bylaws,
course.
that Robert's rules will apply.
You'll
Yeah.
notice.
Nancy, we're missing a word on the second
Yes.
line. It's governing
Second
rules
line.
of the organization,
That
of
should be
the NCAC.
Okay, thank you.
For the operation.
Thank you.
Exactly.
We'll correct that. When I did this presentation, it was weird. I was copying and pasting and some things weren't pasting correctly. So I will blame that, but I should have checked it better. So thank you for that. Ken, I think Susan, you texted me, so I'll
just
make
sent
sure
it
we
to
make
you.
that correction. Thank you very much, both of you.
And you'll notice that Robert's rules is an issue of procedure. And that's why we always have the caveat that what we are doing is to be consistent with public law, county regulations, and bylaws, and et cetera. It's not to precede or overwrite any of those things. It is simply a procedural document.
Thank you. So all meetings shall be open to the public is covered elsewhere in the bylaws. So that's why we took it out of Article 8. Are there any questions, any discussion?
This is Tom too.
Hi, Tom, too.
If you could go back to it, so well, no, I've got
Yes.
it here. Okay, I've printed it out too, as I print out everything. I like it because it basically is about procedure for deliberation, but to the extent that it would be trumped by Oregon Public Meeting Law, Tillamook County regulations, or NCAC bylaws, then it takes a second role, which those other things are substantive as well as procedural. I'm wondering if other applicable Oregon law is necessary, because Oregon Public Meeting Law is not the only Oregon law that we could be inconsistent with.
Okay, maybe we should just change it to Oregon law or Tillamook County, Oregon, so state or county regulations or state or county laws.
I think it would. You can
Just
ask
keep it
Sarah, but
simpler.
you could ask Sarah, but I think it would be
Yeah.
Tillamook County ordinances, maybe ordinances or regulations.
What do you think, Sarah?
Would there be federal laws that we could come up against?
Well, that's true too.
Sure. You know,
we could change it to law, just inconsistent with law.
Well, you
Yeah,
could-
I would say these rules shall apply in all cases unless they are consistent. And what you're talking about are laws or rules related to public meetings, right?
Yeah.
Make sure I have this straight. Okay.
Well, no, it would be for anything. Because Robert's rules is partly to conduct meetings, but it's also but I guess most of the applications would be for meetings themselves.
This
Sure.
particular section deals
could-
with operations.
Mhm.
So
Right.
in that sense,
but-
it is about the operations of a meeting.
Mhm.
Mhm.
After regulations, you could add other applicable law,
Mhm.
and that would pretty much get everything.
That sounds good.
I would say that. And Nancy, I can have county council, if you flag this section for me, when you're ready for me to send that over, I'll have them take a look.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So
Sarah,
thank you for that comment, Tom.
is it Tillamook County regulations, or is it Tillamook County ordinances and orders?
It would be ordinances and orders. The regulations are within the ordinances, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would say you've got board orders and you have ordinances that are passed by the county. I think I would say Tillamook County orders and ordinances, put ordinances first.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So thank you.
I think
So,
these are
Tom-
good points, yeah.
Yeah, Tom, too, can you please email me your wording that you're suggesting?
Sure.
Thank you.
I would take Bill's other applicable law.
Yeah,
insert that before NCA bylaws. Thankfully, the NCA bylaws can't even trump Robert's Rules of Order.
Right. They could.
As
So-
I think they should.
It's not it's not a matter of what trumps the other, because clearly the differential is that Robert's Rules and Order is a procedural process rather than a legal or a law or a regulations process. And the kind of wordsmithing we're doing here is consistent with every time this thing comes up in a set of bylaws. Robert's Rules of Order is procedural, not policy, not law, not regulation. It is simply how we get to the decisions that we arrive at.
Well, it's also
we have
how-
things in the bylaws that address that.
Yeah. Okay, so, okay, well, thank you. Is there any additional comment? And we'll take this back to the, to our committee and discuss that at our next meeting also. I think this has been really helpful. I'm kind of thinking maybe we need to reverse it back. I don't know, we'll put on our thinking caps.
Oh, and the last iteration of it, I think sounded about right. It's the right order.
Okay,
I think it's fine.
okay. So I don't think we need a poll. We made
let's-
quite a
let-
few
let's-
changes.
Let's do the poll just for practice, Nancy.
You want to? Okay. Are there
I
any
think so.
additional comments? All right, so let me stop sharing and go to the poll.
So this poll was different. This said yes, no, abstain. The other one said yes, no, unsure.
I thought they all said unsure.
This one just said abstain, or at least when it flashed up.
Oh, and I
Put
don't,
it up and we'll see.
well, it looks like I can't because I did it before. Relaunch poll. Oh, I can do it. Yay. All right. All right, it's up.
So the question is as is.
Right.
So that changes my vote.
Well, I'm putting yes with new language discussed this evening.
Yeah, well, this is not a real
Yeah,
election.
it doesn't matter.
Doesn't really matter.
Well, I don't know. It's going to be out there.
Well,
So,
it is practice.
yeah. Next time I'll edit it to say, in fact, I think what I'm going to do in future polls is to actually write it, having some caveat about existing discussion being implemented. So, but it is nice to know I can actually change it on the fly as long as I don't launch it. So, all right, we've got 7 out of 12, 8 out of 12. And Lori and Bill, are you having problems getting to question 2?
No, I got there and typed an answer.
The other Bill, or excuse me, Gary. Gary and Lori, did you have any trouble getting to question 2 this time? You're both muted, so I don't know if you're trying to answer.
I didn't have any problems. I just didn't have anything to input.
Okay, okay. I'm just
So-
curious
so
if,
Nancy,
if there's some tech. Yes, Bill?
For future polls, you could have yes, and then yes with comment, and then you
Uh-huh.
could put whatever, so that, I mean, that might give people a lot, we're on this, so we're like, okay, we got it all.
Mhm.
But the next people might not have been at this meeting. That might give them a little idea of
Mhm.
how they would say
We'll talk
yes,
about that.
a qualified yes or something.
Yeah, this has been a really good learning thing with this polling stuff. Okay, I'm going to stop. It looks like we have 9 out of 12. I'm going to end the poll. Any objection to ending the poll? Okay, share results. We've got a little more discussion on this one. So Tom 2 wrote, with new language discussed this evening. Tom Sipe wrote, no need to add items discussed. Jeff wrote, I support the changes discussed in the meeting, ordinances and orders and other applicable law. Bill wrote, as amended during the discussion, and Anne wrote, with further consideration of language. So yes, 44%, no, 22%, and unsure 33% because it wasn't a well-written poll, should have been edited. Okay. Thank you guys very much. Let's share again for our last one. Oh, there's a comment. Let me look. Oh, okay. Do not want to end the meeting. Summary, share. Okay.
This is
At least
getting
I'm sharing
exciting,
better
Nancy.
than I
just-
used to. What's
I
that?
feel like we're building to a crescendo here. This is awesome.
Okay, Bill, thank you. Okay, it's a fun group. So Article 9, you're on again, Michael. And
Thank
this one
you.
has probably more change than the others.
Yeah, the thing about bylaws is they should have a sense of a solid foundation for the organization and for the assembly. They should not be easily changed without a great deal of dialogue and discussion and thought and preparation. Anything that can be changed easily and quickly should probably be reserved for policies and procedures, which can be done at any time. But it is typically for bylaws that they carry a sense of authority that should be long lasting, and that they should require a great deal of discussion and thought before they're changed. And it's also standard for bylaws that they be changed only with a 2/3 vote. In other words, not just a simple majority. I can't imagine the horror of having bylaws changed with one vote more than half of the assembly and the other half saying no, 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 we don't want that. So generally speaking, bylaws are changed only by a 2/3 vote. Secondly, we have articulated a very simple process where bylaws proposed go to a bylaws committee for deliberation. And that they're done so with a significant amount of time before they're brought back to the assembly for a vote. I should note that anybody can propose a change in bylaws, and it can happen at any time. But the fail-safe thing there is that it goes to a committee or it goes to a body that's going to do deliberation on a particular bylaw and give it an opportunity to be discussed outside of of any emotional kinds of context that may cause that particular bylaw to be changed. But they're done with a simple, reasonable deliberation, and then brought back for discussion and argumentation. And if everybody agrees and you can't quite get to the 2/3 vote, then it goes back again for further consideration, or it's tossed out. But that's basically what we're introducing here as amendments to the bylaws.
Okay, so thank you, Michael. So basically we're requiring an annual review here, which was not in there in the past. Doesn't mean there need to be any changes, but since bylaws committee is a standing committee, it should be formed and do a review, and then different ways to be able to handle the amendments. So do you want us to read the language, or does anyone have any questions or comments about this?
I like it until I like the whole thing, including the second part of this, except there's a major mistake in the second part. In the last line, instead of up on, it should be upon approval.
On the
And when you say the second
paragraph?
part,
Yeah,
there's three.
I skipped ahead. I'm reading them both.
Oh, okay. So you're into the next page.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, I like
Okay,
it.
so on page 1, what are you thinking? We haven't gone page 2 yet. You're okay with page 1? Any
Yes.
comments on page 1? Okay.
So
So
I have
page
a
2.
hypothetical, which maybe page 2 addresses it. I don't know. I didn't skip ahead. I was about to.
I'm cheating.
But And this is what like a hopefully something that never comes up, but I think we've learned that we want really solid bylaws for this kind of thing. Suppose someone proposes a bylaw amendment. It is referred to the bylaws committee. The bylaws committee decides that this amendment, that they do not support it and they don't recommend it and don't write new language. And this person feels that their bylaw amendment could get a 2/3 vote.
Yes.
What do they do? Like it seems like the bylaws committee should not have the ability to I mean, I know a lot of organizations committees can do this all the time, but it seems problematic if the bylaws committee can completely kill a suggestion.
Yeah, there's
Because what if we have a future bylaws committee that's full of jerks instead of you
yeah,
guys?
yeah. Oh, absolutely. I understand where you're going, Jeff.
Because of course we would never do that.
You know, but
Does-
your point is very well taken. There is nothing in this writing, nor is there in any other that I've seen about bylaws that prohibits the assembly to change a bylaw at a particular sitting. This is a standard procedure where anything that comes up goes to a committee. If the committee comes back and does something that the assembly disagree with, the assembly has always has the opportunity to change that. And
So
all
I
it
think
takes is a 2/3 vote. And
I
that's
think on this page, on the last sentence, that it obligates the subcommittee to come back with its review of any proposed amendments from the membership or from anybody else and say what they're recommending. And that could then be amended and voted on by the assembly, even if it's a negative. I don't think we would have to bring that back with the way it's written.
Well, and
I-
also,
I-
Nancy, if you look at the second bullet, it requires a subcommittee to make a recommendation.
Right.
That's right. That's right.
So that
Yeah.
so
The-
you couldn't just bury it.
Yeah.
You would
Oh,
recommend a negative vote, but I think, Jeff, you would have to say, this has been proposed, we think it's done.
So it would be
I think you could say in this, I read it the way I think Bill's reading it, which is it strongly suggests that may not be good enough, that it's going to go to a vote of the general membership. You could say in the second bullet point, 1 month before the general meeting or general or special meeting in which the vote is to be taken. So it's clear that there's going to be a vote of the general group.
Yeah. The purpose for this second bullet here is to not allow somebody at any particular meeting to jump up and say, I'd like to propose that we change the bylaws and that it happen in this particular meeting. If something like that occurs, then this particular wording requires that it go to the bylaws committee so that it has the benefit of deliberation and discussion. When it comes back to the assembly again, then it's at least it is satisfied that deliberation has occurred and that the assembly can then do whatever the assembly chooses to do at that time. So this just simply precludes a specious action on the part of the assembly. And Jeff, your point is very well taken. The bylaws committee, under no circumstances, is ever the one who is the gatekeeper for bylaws.
So can I elaborate on my hypothetical? And this is not that hypothetical, like as you'll probably all
I know
recognize.
exactly what you're talking about.
So suppose someone proposes a bylaws amendment, and that amendment is not in the proper form, and the bylaws committee takes it, and they both reject the premise of the amendment and also the form. What gets voted on? Does the bylaws committee resolve the intention of the amender into proper form and get the approval of the person who made the who made the proposal before submitting it to a vote, or do you just say like, we don't like this, so we didn't change it? But yeah, I think that needs at least needs to be clarified, that what happens if something is proposed and it's not in the proper form? Do you have to put it in the proper form before you bring it back to the membership, even if you don't support it? And how do you, what's the process for getting sign off on the person who proposed the amendment?
Yeah,
So Jeff, do you mean when you say proper form, if somebody just says, hey, I think we should change Article 7 so that it's more inclusive, rather than saying, I propose Article 7 be amended such that it says blah, 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 blah.
I think probably more like...
Is that the distinction you're making?
Well, I think it could be anything, but let's use the example that someone writes new language to go into the bylaws, and it causes all kinds of problems beyond like just because it's not written with the care that you guys have put into making these bylaws. So it creates a conflict with another part of the bylaws, or it's ambiguous, or is improper in any other way, because there's both that maybe the bylaws committee doesn't support the idea and the intent, and then there's also, is it written in such a way that if it was adopted as is, it would create ambiguity or create problems.
Yeah, that could be, I understand what you're saying, and it's a fact of life, I think, in any deliberation, in any assembly, that they could do this anywhere. Anything that comes up, regardless of the bylaws, I mean, outside of the bylaws, let's just say policy, or let's just say land use, or whatever it is, they could be doing something that is in distinct contradistinction, at least, with something else, with law, with policy, with regulations of the county. That's a possibility. But at least this gives this process here at least gives the argument and the issue itself the light of deliberation, and it does maximize the opportunity for somebody, if not the subcommittee itself or the bylaws committee or whomever, it does give the opportunity for somebody in the assembly to say, wait a minute. Do you understand what you're doing here? And make that case to the assembly so that they can understand what it is that they're going to do. Beyond that, boy, oh boy, there's really, if people are going to blow themselves up, there's really not a whole lot to keep them from doing that.
No, but I do see Jeff's point. And Jeff, I do believe that the wording does say that we need to consider all proposals and bring those back to the membership with some kind of a response.
Sure.
But I do think in the policies and procedures, we should make a note that gets more explicit about it. Because I think even if it's something that's rejected, and the case that I believe you may be bringing up, which is an excellent example, it's been in my intent when we get through a little further to contact that person that actually made some motions and see if that person is going to be satisfied with what we're coming up with.
Point of clarification.
Is there, hold on just a second, Tom. Is there a
No, I believe I have the floor.
No, go ahead.
Thank you.
Good.
I want to clarify that when we have the recommendation. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Michael.
Well, is there a little history here that I'm not aware of, Nancy?
Yes.
Yeah, but maybe we're not supposed to be.
No, it's
Okay.
fine. It's all public record. And,
Yeah, it's public
when
record,
we
yeah.
had our first meetings, we included in our ideas brainstorm, motions that were made in June and July, well, June and possibly April and June, by an individual regarding the bylaws. And she was amenable to letting the bylaws committee tackle that as part of our overall review, and we've been doing that. So we just need to get back to her before we finalize things. Probably now would be a good time.
Okay.
But
So-
I do think in the policies and procedures, we should make that really, really explicit. And
So
the
I
question
wanna
is,
make
do we
clear-
need to in the
I'm-
bylaws?
I want to make something
Yes.
clear. Nancy, you used the term reject. We would never
We
reject.
wouldn't reject, no.
Okay,
We would
so that is-
recommend it.
We would may recommend against it.
Right.
And
Which
if I
is a
can
lot
ask
like
Jeff,
rejection.
well, no, it's not rejecting because we're going to pass through everything.
Yeah,
We cannot be a dead end.
right.
Right.
So I would ask Jeff, what language would satisfy you that wouldn't happen? I think that's what you're asking for. You're asking for make
Jeff-
sure that we don't have a dead end and that something gets due process.
Well, and you're asking me off the top of my head, because I think it's actually a pretty tricky question, and
Okay.
maybe the best venue is the rules and regulations, but I think what the obligation should be is that even if the bylaws committee doesn't support the amendment, that they produce a version of the proposal that is signed off on by the proposer that is in proper form, if they can.
Well, there's two, okay.
So Jeff, how about, I mean, that's farther than I think we need to go. If you look at the second bullet in the third line, it says subcommittee for study and recommendation.
Recommendation.
What if we added parentheses with rationale or including rationale? So we're saying this is a dumb idea because it's a dumb idea, or we might say we recommend no here because it's so inconsistent with all these other things. But we would set forth the reasons that we're suggesting a no vote, rather than doing all this person's work for them.
I think if we added something along the lines of another bullet that said, in the event that the bylaws committee recommended against a particular motion, that they work with the submitter to rationalize that. I mean, something to that effect, that there be a requirement that they be answered and there be interactions. I don't know how to say that right offhand, top of my head
Yeah,
either.
it seems like
But
it needs
that
some
sort
more
of
work.
thing. But
And-
that sort of
and-
thing.
Something like that. And
Okay.
And obviously, like,
You could-
maybe this is too much to go in the bylaws, but since it has happened, like it's a real thing that, like, it's a real case. It's not. It's actually not a hypothetical. I think the case of you don't want you don't support what they came up with, but you really don't want what the words they wrote to be entered into the bylaws that you are so carefully stewarding, that there's like a middle ground where maybe you recommend no in the case, like you also offer like improved text, or you go through a process where you work with the submitter to produce text that the bylaws committee will sign off on form but not on content, or something like that.
To me,
I mean, Jeff, this strikes me a little bit like news organizations that have been trying to present both sides.
Yeah.
And they're struggling with, yes, but if one side is so completely wacky, do they have an obligation to give it equal time? I mean, if like there's a tiny little sliver over here for this conspiracy theory or whatever, do you need to give it equal time? If we just look at some proposal and say, that's never going to fly with our committee, do we need to spend a lot of time trying to massage it so that it's in the right form or whatever? I mean,
I'll go ahead, Tom.
I think Michael's right to for the big part of it, which is you're never going to come up with rules that take into consideration every hypothetical that may happen in the future. And I think Bill's right too, but you could add a sentence that says to the second bullet point that says that the the individual who offered the proposed amendment will have the opportunity to discuss, bring up for vote, whatever, that amendment at the time of the meeting, as well as any recommendation can be brought up by the bylaws subcommittee. I'm sure,
Yeah,
I don't think it's that.
The thing about all of that, first of all, wordsmithing is going to occur. It always does. And it's one of the things that drives people off the wall, because it gets on the floor with 150 or 200 people. Each of them think they have better wording and so on and so forth. Okay, set that aside, but that's an issue. It's an issue. Jeff, I understand what you're saying. But I think that, rather than saying that any individual a person who proposes a change in the bylaws shall have the opportunity to blah, 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 that's already implied. That's already there. It's in the process itself. You might, by the way, include in here that the bylaws committee will provide an affirmative and negative position, so that at least there is a broad range of the reasons why the bylaws committee is proposing X, Y, and Z. And so the thing is that once it gets on the floor of deliberation for the assembly itself, all of this stuff is going to come out anyway. That person who says, wait a minute, that's not what I wanted to do, they'll have their opportunity to stand up and make their case. And it has to be a strong case, or it's not going to make the 2/3 majority to get through. And that's the fail-safe kind of argument right there.
So I do, though, agree with Jeff's premise here of we need to make sure that it's clear in here that there will be a response.
Yes.
And a recommendation, and of course, any response, if we can't come to an agreement with the person making the proposition, it'll still have an opportunity to go before the assembly.
Well,
we're doing a little bit differently now, where we're redoing the entire set of bylaws. We're doing a total review. In the future, hopefully that's not going to be as necessary to do this kind of a major kind of a thing. Somebody proposes new wording, the bylaws committee meets and discusses it and gets back to that person and can work with it. But I do think we need to look at how we word it. And Michael, why don't you and I sit down, since you and I were kind of the main ones, and see if we can come up with something to take to the rest of the committee and discuss. Does that sound okay?
I thank you, Nancy. I'll be glad to do that. But, I'm still looking at this study and recommend.
Right.
Study and recommend. That implies that the committee, subcommittee, is going to report back what occurred.
Right.
And has the responsibility to make it clear. Yes.
What if we included something in that study concept that the committee contacts the person proposing the amendment?
Well, you can do that, I think, in policies and recommendations. That's where that belongs, not in bylaws.
Maybe.
And rules and policies and rules. That's how we actually do things should be in that document rather than bylaws. Bylaws is a structure, not a requirement. A set of actually how you actually do things. So it's a structure of how it goes. But when you say subcommittee for study and recommendation, then it seems to me clear to me that the subcommittee has a responsibility to report back to the assembly the product.
I also think the last sentence of the third bullet also says again that we'll present its review of any proposed amendments. That doesn't mean our proposed amendments. That can mean amendments that were proposed to us as well, right? We need to come back.
Michael has persuaded me. I'm back to, I like the proposed wording, because he's right. What will happen is that the NCA bylaws subcommittee will study and make a recommendation. It will take it to a general meeting to be voted on by the membership, and anybody that's in opposition to it, including the original promoter of the proposed amendment, can say, that's not what I meant.
Right.
And can offer, another motion. I mean, maybe this will take 5 hours, but I think it's inclusive. It really is inclusive. It's not like the bylaws committee is going to hijack the process.
But I do think in the policies and procedures, we can add something that says, that really stipulates that we need to work with somebody who's made the referral.
I just want to say though,
Who was
Jeff,
that speaking just before Nancy? Was that Jeff?
yeah,
No, that was Tom, I think.
Yeah.
Tom Pottage.
Tom, too.
Jeff, your point is exceptionally well taken, because what you're pointing to really gets to the nitty gritty of why we have this business in the first place. I don't know what the issue is. I've not been here long enough to know the history, but I've seen explosions occur because a group or subgroup or small group of people have something that they want to see done in a most righteous manner, and everybody else says no, and the power of the majority takes. Well, I appreciate what you're saying, because that's something that we have to have in mind when we write these things.
Well, and I will say, Michael, that this person was very amenable to having this referred to the bylaws committee, and she's been quite working with us on it. So it's great.
Okay. All right.
Is there any more discussion? Okay, well, let's go to page 2 and finish this part. So Michael, you want to go through page 2?
Well, page 2 is pretty much the same. And I think there is, you can see the red on the left side, that, changes will become effective immediately. And that's normal. That's expected. And also on the right side, that we'll have 2/3 majority, which is also, it's a safeguard, and it's an important safeguard that this is not something willy-nilly that we're going to just come in and change, but it's a significant change in how we do things. And so basically that's what we're looking at here.
So really the only change is the 2/3 majority.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Tom, editorial change noted, that'll be fixed.
What's that, Tom?
The up on approval, it's upon approval.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, good. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Any more discussion on this?
By the way.
So basically, we have currently a simple majority. It's my hope that we will still pass by a 2/3 majority with these bylaws changes when we present them. But any other comments?
Well, these bylaws changes only require a simple majority.
Correct.
And by the way, Bill, my understanding is pretty clear that when this comes before the assembly, these bylaws will be approved by only a simple majority, because they are not in effect currently. That says 2/3. So 2/3 becomes effective only after the bylaws are approved.
That is correct, but it is my hope that we will not be like at 51 and 49%, because that would not be, I do not consider that acceptable, even though it technically would be.
I mean, if that's an issue, we can propose an amendment to this particular bylaw.
We could
independently.
We could.
Rather than the whole.
Okay, so we've had some good discussion. How do you guys feel at this point on the wording from slides 1 and 2 after this extensive discussion? If I was hearing from Tom too that you like the current wording for everything other than some editorial changes. How about the rest of you? Do you feel, and putting in some more specifics in the policies and procedures about how we respond to people?
And I'm sorry to be out of order here, Nance, but the
Mhm.
slide that I'm looking at right now
Mhm.
says poll, do you support yes, no, abstain? When you put up
I'm
the
sorry. So that's where you're getting
poll.
that. Yes. So
Yeah.
when we did the presentation, we had abstain, and when actually did the poll, it said unsure. So thank you for that clarification. The actual poll will say unsure.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you for
that's
that
where I was.
clarification. And this should say Article 9, not Article 8. We're on Article 9. So
Okay, and I'm sorry to interrupt there,
edited.
but I was
No,
afraid I'd lose the slide again, and you'd think I was a nut.
yes, thank you. So my mistake. I apologize. I will take full responsibility for that. So, all right. So, do people feel like they could that they can support the wording that is on slide 1 here at this point and put in some more information in policies and procedures, or do you feel like we need to actually do some wordsmithing here?
I'd like to find out if people are good with it as it is.
Right. That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, looks good to me.
So people who are here as commenters besides the committee, would anyone besides Tom too like to speak up? Jeff, I can't tell if you're talking. Oh, there you go.
I was not, but I was just unmuting myself. I think it's probably okay. Like I think there's probably improvements that could be made that would like make me like it more, but I don't think like I'm super bent out of shape about what we have currently. So
Tom,
Okay.
would it help, Jeff, if we added a line or the concept anyway? We can word it later, but the concept that the committee shall report back to the assembly on its study and recommendations.
I think that part's pretty
Yeah, I think
clear.
that's
Like if there's improvements to be made, it's about what happens if you go back to the assembly and the original proposer doesn't support what you came up with. And I totally get that you think that what we have here kind of implies that normal parliamentary procedure then takes hold and people hash it out. And I think that's mostly okay. I think a little bit more kind of explicitness about that wouldn't hurt. How about that? So
Okay, Nancy and I will talk about that and kind of put our heads together and see what that means. Again, I want to tell you, I appreciate your comment because it does raise a very important crux of what this business is all about right here.
Okay. Are we ready for a poll?
sure.
Would anyone else is anyone else care to comment of the people attending?
This is
Because I
Lori.
can't.
Yeah,
Hi, Lori.
I would just say that I follow with a lot of Jeff's concerns, but I don't have specific suggestions for wording. But I hope that you do look over the words and see if there can be some amendments to them. So I guess you're calling that wordsmithing. Well, once again, I'm not quite sure where that leaves me with how I should vote, because yes, no, and abstain. I guess I would
It's going to be yes, no, unsure in the actual
Okay.
poll that we do. So
Okay.
sorry for that confusion. We'll correct that for next time. I think I would say, Lori, that if you feel like they need to be more explicit on Jeff's concern, that you put no or unsure in a comment. And if you think it should be the existing wording with some clarification in the policies and procedures, you say yes, and you could comment. How's that?
Thanks. Great.
Okay. Anyone else like to comment? Okay, I'm going to stop the share and start a poll. I found why I couldn't get into polls before. It's because it was hidden. So, okay, poll 4, launch. So again, if you feel like the text should be changed more than just a little editorial, say no or unsure. And if you feel like it's good the way it is, say yes. And feel free to comment if you can get to the comment question. Wyatt in the comments said, doesn't the board have the authority as written to refer a proposed amendment back to the bylaws committee of any proposal for formatting or revision to still reflect the intention of the proponent? Yes. Okay, we're at 8 of 12. Are people still answering the questions? 10 of 12. Hey, that's the biggest we've had so far. All right, any more? I'm going to go ahead and end the poll then and share results. So you guys can just see the results without the comments, right? So on the comments, Michael wrote, perhaps the subcommittee should make available time and opportunity for the proposer of changes to speak to the subcommittee. Lori wrote, I support some wordsmithing to clarify the concerns Jeff expressed. Jeff wrote, I think the case I would really like to avoid is where garbage text is up for a vote. And Bill wrote, yes, but in bullet 2, I would add including rationale after recommendations. And Anne wrote, and Jeff's concerns should be addressed in the wording. So thank you for all that. I'm reading it in case we don't have any of this saved. And then looks like 6 people voted yes, 1 person said no, and 3 people said unsure, which is great because of the. All right, it says poll saved. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing.
Nancy, this might be a question more for Jeff than you, but in this poll, it says, 60% or 70% did this or that. To me, it would be more interesting to see that 6 out of 10 voted this way, or that 60 out of 100 voted this way, because you would have a feel for like how many people are actually care, you could still have the same percentage. It would just, for me, it would add more information. And I don't know if the poll can do it that way.
That is what we had 10 people in this bill. So it was showing 6 out of 10, 3 out of 10, and then it has a percentage. So it does do both. Yeah, it does do both.
Oh, okay. Well, we didn't see 6 out of 10. We just saw
you don't
60%.
see that. Okay.
We just saw 60%.
Okay, so I'm sharing the results now. So all you see is the percentage, huh?
Well, it says 100% answered. I don't see anywhere on there that it says how many people voted. Yeah.
Yeah.
We
do have that. Although we'll have to see, because I found a new thing in Zoom where it's showing me the results, but the results that get saved like as part of the meeting record are I think they only like they're pretty thin. I think they only have the 60%. So like when I'm taking meeting minutes, I always screenshot everything to make sure that yeah.
Okay.
So,
Good to know.
but Jeff, we're not, the rest of us aren't seeing those numbers.
Right. I can see it because I have admin access, but
yeah,
like it's a good, like, since you might want to study it for the committee later, you like Nancy, you might want to save it or something.
Okay. Thank you. So before I actually exit the meeting, I need to go back and look at these results again and screenshot them then is probably what I need to do, right? So, okay, thank you.
Well, I don't know if it's so important for this meeting. I'm saying going forward.
Going further, going future. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and when I'm doing stuff for general meetings, I always read that out, like the action, like also because people might be watching the video later,
Right.
and because people might be on the phone. So,
Okay.
um,
Sounds
and
good.
I guess
Thank you.
the other thing I would say is that this has been terrific practice for the poll, but what do we have? 12 here and 7 committee members. Are they all here?
6 committee members plus
6
Sarah.
committee members. So plus Sarah. So we have so we actually have 5 people who are providing input. Sort of. I mean, we're I guess
Right.
all providing input, but
I'm not. I can't.
to me, more interesting would be like, of all these people that took their time to come and attend our thing,
Right.
what did they have to say?
so in future, you could ask the committee members not to participate in the poll.
Oh,
Yeah,
Exactly.
good point, Bill. Excellent
That's
point.
what I was kind of leading up to. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great point. Let's make a note of that. Committee members, we don't vote
Another thing that
because we get to vote elsewhere. Okay, thank you.
Another thing that occurs to me is that in my feeble mind, I thought tonight's issues were probably pretty simple. Slam dunk and all of that sort of thing, right? When we get into some really meaty things, we just spend an hour and a half. So I think we need to consider what's going to be happening down the road.
Right. Especially
The
Saturday
only
with
thing I
Article
would say
3.
about that, Michael, is I think we spent a lot of time kind of practicing polling.
Yeah, right.
There was a lot of introduction. Are you going to do that introduction every meeting, Nance, or not?
You know, I don't know. That was actually going to be one of my questions. I think we've moved on into the end. I was going to share the schedule, but does anyone need to see the schedule? Because I think it's out there everywhere.
Yeah.
I'd rather just
No,
not
you just- yeah.
share that. So let's get into the end. I wanted to just see what you thought about how this went and suggestions for the future. And so go ahead and hit me. I certainly have my own notes, but
Well, I would do a very abbreviated part. I don't think they need to know how the process has been and so forth, but what we're going to do, tonight at the meeting is a good sort of. They've seen the agenda, I would think, or you might just say we're going to, discuss articles, this, and this, but that whole thing could be condensed quite a bit, I think, and then jump into it. And then, like on Article 1, I wouldn't have to give such a long discussion. If, if what we're saying, we're not doing anything. But we might.
It's unique though, Bill.
Yeah. Yes.
There's no other part like art.
Yes, absolutely. But we might, each of us sort of be conscious of, the time frame that we're operating in. But absolutely, whoever it was, Michael, what made the comment? Yes, wow. If we get into a lengthy one, because I put down on my calendar 2 hours and thought it would be 20 minutes. Wow, boy, did I miss that. And there's Susan in Amsterdam, like, when do I get to go to bed?
I put down on my calendar for the Saturday meeting, 2 o'clock until it ends.
Well, that's actually a question. We've said 2 hours. We have a second one set up for Article 3, but I'm debating about whether we should set it up so that we have a certain amount of time per section of each article as we go through. Like even, officers is quite lengthy and meetings is quite lengthy. So do we set a time limit on discussion if we're in the middle of a good discussion? The other articles don't have other meeting dates at this point, although we do have an article, a ninth session if we need it to come back to. So I'm kind of thinking that we actually have a limit per section of each article. This one, these were very simple tonight, but Because you're right, we've had a lot of discussion.
which I think is great. I mean, it's super that,
Mhm.
I've heard a lot, and it's good because, we've been something of a closed group. Now, I don't mean closed, but, we've been speaking to ourselves. And now is an opportunity to hear what others have to say. And I think it's really cool. It's really good.
Right.
Yeah.
So some of you who are not committee members, please feel free to comment here on how you thought tonight went. And understanding it's giving us a break that it's our first one, but we'd like to see what you'd like to see in the future meetings.
One thing I'll notice, yeah, I know I'm on the committee, but we probably won't have time on Saturday for everyone to introduce themselves because I suspect there'll be a lot of people.
Right. I agree. Thank you. Anything else? So
No,
Lori, Roger, Gary, Tom.
I thought it was good. I mean, it's going to become more complicated it's going to become more complicated beginning on Saturday. But there should be I don't know that you can have an absolutely free discussion. I think people need to raise their hands and that are not committee members at least, and give them 2 or 3 minutes or whatever, or we'll go until 8 o'clock.
And I think we need to actually have you raise hands through the chat, because otherwise, when there's something on the board, it's impossible to see who's raising their hands.
The only other thing I would suggest is that since Jeff was the original proposer of an amendment to the amendment, that you interact with him so it's clear.
Yeah.
If you're gonna add additional wording, that you run it past him, because he's the one that has a concern. I think it's covered by the procedure itself, but I understand his concern.
And it wasn't just his. It showed up in the poll with the comments that there were others that agreed with that too. So we'll definitely, Michael and I'll put our thinking caps on, and it's a good point to go back to Jeff too.
The other thing I might note, Nancy, for future meetings is I believe the guests, like Tom too, had all the chance they wanted to comment, but there weren't too many comments. Most of the discussion was by committee members. So if we have an article like on Saturday where we think we might have a lot of public discussion, maybe the subcommittee members, do their listening.
I agree. I think the people that should be.
I talked as much as anybody, so I'm not casting aspersion. It was a meeting, and part of this is just sort of testing this whole feedback thing.
Right.
But that would be one thing I would say, that if there's a lot of people there that have a lot of things to say, then maybe we don't say much.
I absolutely agree. Lori, you raised your hand. Thank you.
Yeah, I was just going to say that if there is a big group that attends, it seems like some way for you to make a list of who's going to speak in order would save a lot of time than trying to pick and choose who's going to talk next. And I don't know if that list would be in the chat or if there's another way for a list to be developed, but people could sign in if they know they're going to want to make a comment.
So the only way I can think of to do that, Lori, is to do it in the chat. And so that's what I think we have to do is have people in the chat. And that way we've got a timestamp on the order of people who can be called on, whereas we don't have that when people just raise their hand. So I also think, we said at the beginning the committee members were not going to speak, and I kind of let that go tonight because there were so few of us. But I do think we need to, the committee members who should speak should be the people presenting when we get to one article.
So I won't talk
wait, sorry, Lori still has the floor. What?
So the other issue with that is if you're doing a list in order for who's going to talk next, then the chat can't I mean, it could be confusing if the people are also making comments. So
Mhm.
I don't know if you're gonna ask people not to make comments, or if we're just gonna intermingle the list for when people, who's gonna talk next with comments, or just, I'm
That's a
just
good
suggesting
point.
you think through how that chat list is gonna be used.
Yeah. And I'm going to call on Jeff because I'm hoping he'll have some tech support way we can do this.
Well, the main thing I was going to point out is that if you're going to use the chat, like you have to assign someone whose whole job
Yes.
is to watch the chat and
Right.
maintain the queue of who's going to talk, because
Yeah, we were planning
you
on
can't
that.
do it. Like it's
Oh, no, no, no.
going to take a lot of attention. And I
Right.
think probably if you just say like to sign up, like write this in the chat, like I would like to comment on that's probably like if someone is just kind of going through and keeping a list, like they'll be able to distinguish that from actual comments, and that person should also probably be in charge of funneling typed comments into the discussion. But that does raise like a good question though, because you're going to have people commenting by voice in like taking their turns and taking their 3 minutes or whatever.
2 minutes.
And maybe you need to make a rule that like we're not going to read comments from the chat. Like everyone's free to look at it, but like if you want to be heard and kind of like be part of the discussion, you have to sign up and talk.
Okay, thank you. Roger?
Well, just a minor thing. I agree with Bill. When you give the results of the poll, I think you need to see how many people voted on each issue rather than just the percentage, because some people may abstain from voting, and it's nice to know if the entire group voted or if just a few people voted.
Yeah, I agree. Gary?
The thing to keep in mind is there probably will be some people who'll just call in on their cell phones and won't be able to get to a chat.
Oh,
happened
that's
in the
true.
past too. So you have to kind of figure out, well, how do you get them in the queue, right?
And they can't raise their
Yeah.
hands either.
Right, right. Thank you. Do you have any suggestions on that, anybody? I don't know.
Well,
Okay, well, while we're
Have
thinking,
a
I'll go
cell
back
phone
to,
period at the end where you say if you're on your phone, like
Yeah.
if you want to talk, like
Okay.
just speak up. Just
sure,
have it separate.
ask about cell phones.
Yeah.
We'll have to ask somebody to remind me to do that. Tom,
so
Tom
I'm seeing-
Prohodich.
Yeah, now that
I'm seeing Tom
now-
has
Wait,
this.
Bill, sorry, Tom has the floor.
Well, this is a more a logistical thing. So until the last couple of minutes, I never saw any chat thing, and maybe that's because you said please chat. And now I've been seeing these faces come up with a little chat thing. Have people
It-
seen those before?
What they're
or-
having is a raised hand. They're
Yeah.
putting up raise their hand, and so that's
But-
what you're
But
seeing.
will we all see those, or will it just be you seeing those, or?
No,
when Jeff
everybody
says
can
we have
see
to-
everybody can see a raised hand. The problem is when we have more of the people in the chat, like if we had 50 or so, you're on different
Yeah.
screens, people move around in the screens. We could have somebody trying to just look at hands and try to record manually who has their hand up and in what order, but it's hard because people move around, and as soon as you speak, you move around. So Tom
So when
Prahovich and then Michael
So when Jeff says keep track of that, is there a way to do that?
Yes.
Okay, let's go to Tom and then Michael.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I think it's imperative that the subcommittee members, I mean, you want to hear, you want to listen, but I think it's imperative when we talk about these articles that you provide whoever's talking about the specific article, the rationale, how you got here, because you spent a lot of time on this, you've taken a lot of public comments, and at least you need to do that.
Mhm.
You know, you're not just pulling this out of the air.
Right. Thank you. And for Article 3, Tom and Wyatt have done a lot of that rationale. So absolutely, the justification needs to be part of it, and alternatives, et cetera. So, yeah, thank you. Michael.
Yeah, one of the things you can do about chat is have your monitor person occasionally every 5 minutes or 10 minutes or so, read the last 5 or whatever chats occurred in order. And then if there's any opportunity or any need to address any individual one there, you can go to that person and speak to them. And so you just make that a slot somewhere in the process to read those comments aloud.
Mhm. Okay, thank you. Okay, any other comments? Did you feel like tonight was worthwhile? Did you feel heard? Those of you who are not part of the committee? Roger's nodding, sort of. Okay, Jeff had a thumbs up. Okay, well, thank you. I'm gonna just invite any of you, committee members, guests, not guests, members, to please email if you have any thoughts, suggestions on how we do this. And because next time Saturday is going to be an interesting one, and I'm looking forward to it. And so anyway, I want to thank you guys for hanging in here for these 2 hours very, very much. We'll
Nancy, thank you for directing this. You did a great job here.
I should mention that I'm working on an update, yet another update, number 20, that is, to Article 3, and that should be out either tonight or if I don't make it early in the morning tomorrow.
okay, thank you very much, Tom. And
this is for Tom. This is a Tom 2 chat response.
Thank you, Tom.
He will understand.
All right. Well, thank you all very much for coming and for commenting, for listening, and you've given us some great direction. So we'll hopefully see all of you on Saturday morning as well.
Okay,
thanks,
Nancy.
Saturday afternoon.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Jeff. Saturday afternoon, 2 o'clock.
All of you and subcommittee members, and include Sarah here, are troopers.
Yeah.
This is a lot of time you're putting in. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been a great experience. And Sarah, we just so appreciate your being here and working with us concurrently. We feel like you're just a huge help. So thank you all very much.
Well, you've given me
we've ordered uniforms, Tom. They're gonna say trooper on them.
They're gonna say,
Tom, this process has given me great grist for writing my next article for the Speech Communication Convention. When I go, I'm going to share all of this with everybody.
All right. Well, thank you all. Meeting adjourned. I'm going to stop recording. We're meeting adjourned at 8:48.
Nice
Good, everybody. Bye.
Bye. Good job,
Bye.
everybody. Bye.
Thanks a lot.